The radiator in room 304 clanked like a dying engine, but it didn't give off any heat. It was just noise. Cold noise. I pulled the thin, scratchy blanket up to my chin, trying to stop the shivering that had settled into my bones 3 years ago and never really left. My hands were shaking, but not from the cold. Not this time. My thumb brushed against my left ring finger, seeking the familiar, cool, smooth metal of Sarah's wedding ring. I wore it on my pinky because my knuckles had swollen too much to wear my own. It was the only thing I had left of her, the only thing they hadn't taken. But my finger brushed against nothing but dry, wrinkled skin. Panic, sharp and icy, pierced through the fog of my medication. I sat up, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I checked the nightstand. The rusted metal table was empty, save for a plastic cup of stale water and my glasses. I checked the floor. I got on my hands and knees, ignoring the sharp pain in my arthritic hips, and felt around the dusty linoleum. Nothing. It was gone. "Looking for something, Mr. Carter?" The voice was oily, slick with fake concern. I looked up. Mrs. Vance, the administrator, stood in the doorway. She was wearing that expensive beige coat she bought with money saved by cutting our heating hours. Kyle, the night orderly, who smelled like stale cigarettes and cruelty, smirked behind her. "My wife's ring," I croaked, my voice sounding rusty from days of silence. "It was on my finger when I fell asleep. Someone came in here. Someone took it." Mrs. Vance sighed, a loud, theatrical exhale that signaled she was dealing with a toddler, not a man who had built bridges and fought in a jungle. "Oh, Raymond, we talked about this. You lose things. Remember the spoon last week? You hid it in your shoe." "I didn't hide it," I shouted, using the bed frame to pull myself up, "and I didn't lose her ring. It's solid gold with a diamond chip. It's all I have to pay for my burial. You know that." Kyle stepped forward, invading my space. He loomed over me, a silent threat. "He's getting agitated, Mrs. Vance. Look at him. He's making a mess." "I am not." I stood as tall as my bent spine allowed. "I want the police. That ring is stolen property." Mrs. Vance's face hardened. The fake smile dropped. "We don't call the police for misplaced trinkets, Raymond. And look at you. You've wet yourself in your confusion." I looked down. My pants were dry, but Kyle grabbed a pitcher of water from the tray before I could blink. The cold water soaked my trousers, freezing my skin. "Oh dear," Mrs. Vance tut-tut, loud enough for the hallway to hear. "Clean him up, Kyle, and put him in a diaper. We can't have him ruining the mattress because he's having another episode." The humiliation of the diaper was worse than the cold. It was a thick, crinkling reminder of my powerlessness. I sat on the edge of the bed, the plastic chafing against my skin, listening to the sounds of the facility waking up, carts rattling, nurses shouting over the intercom, the smell of burnt toast and industrial cleaner. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. I used to command a floor of 50 men at the plant. I used to build things that stood for decades. Now I was just a wet stain on a mattress to them. I refused to eat breakfast. I just sat there, staring at the empty spot on my pinky finger. The ghost of the ring felt heavier than the metal ever did. Sarah had worn that ring for 45 years. We bought it at a pawn shop in 1968, right after I came back from the war. It cost me 3 paychecks, but the look in her eyes, it was worth every hour of overtime. She made me promise on her deathbed that I would sell it if I ever needed care. "Don't you suffer, Ray," she whispered. "Use the ring." I didn't sell it. I couldn't. It was my anchor, and now it was floating away. Around noon, Kyle came back in with a mop. He didn't look at me. He just pushed the dirty gray water around the floor, humming a tune. He was wearing a new watch, a shiny digital thing that looked too big for his wrist. "Nice watch," I said, my voice low. Kyle stopped mopping. He looked at me, his eyes dead and flat. "Birthday present." "From who?" I asked. "The Tooth Fairy?" He chuckled, a dark, wet sound. Careful, old man. You want another shower? Mrs. Vance is already writing up your file. Advanced dementia with paranoid delusions. That's what she put. You know what that means? It means nobody listens to a word you say. You could scream that I murdered the Pote, and they'd just up your dosage. He leaned the mop against the wall and walked over to my bedside table. He picked up the small framed photo of Sarah, the black and white one from our wedding day. "Put that down," I warned, gripping the sheets. "She was pretty," Kyle said, tilting the photo. "Shame she ended up with a loser who can't even keep hold of a ring." He dropped the photo, face down. The glass cracked with a sharp snap. I lunged. It was instinct. I forgot my bad hip, forgot the diaper, forgot the weakness. I threw myself at him, my old hands grasping for his scrub top. I wanted to hurt him. I wanted to make him feel the pain that was tearing my chest apart. But I was 79. He was 25 and lifted weights. He didn't even flinch. He just shoved me back. I hit the floor hard, my head cracking against the nightstand. Darkness swam at the edges of my vision. "Help!" Kyle yelled, his voice instantly changing to a panic-stricken falsetto. "Help! He's attacking me! He's gone crazy!"
They sedated me. That was their answer to everything. A needle in the arm, a chemically induced fog that made the hours bleed into one another. I lost 2 days, maybe 3. When I finally woke up, the crack in Sarah's picture frame was still there, a jagged lightning bolt across her smile. It was the first thing I saw. It broke my heart all over again. I was weak, weaker than before. My mouth tasted like copper and ash. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like they were filled with sand. I sat in the wheelchair by the window, looking out at the gray Detroit flush. The sky was the color of a bruise. I needed a plan. My anger was still there, burning hot under the sedation, but I knew now that physical force was useless. I couldn't fight Kyle. I couldn't outshout Mrs. Vance. They held all the cards. They controlled the narrative. To the world, I was a senile old man losing his mind. To them, I was just an ATM machine with a pulse, bleeding out my pension until I died. I needed to be smarter. I needed to be the man I was in '69, the engineer, the survivor. I started watching. I stopped complaining. I stopped asking about the ring. I became the good patient. I took my pills, or pretended to, tucking them under my tongue and spitting them into the toilet later. I sat quietly in the common room, a blanket over my lap, my eyes half closed. They thought I was napping. They thought I was gone. But I was listening. I heard things. The walls in this place were thin, and the staff was careless. They thought we were furniture. "The pawn shop on 8th isn't taking any more jewelry this month," I heard Mrs. Vance whisper into her cell phone by the nurse's station. "Too much heat. We need to find a buyer in Toledo." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just my ring. It was an operation. They were harvesting us, picking us clean like vultures before we were even dead. Mrs. Vance, Kyle, maybe others. They were stealing from the helpless, from the people who had forgotten what they owned, or the ones like me who had no one to fight for them. I looked around the common room. Mrs. Higgins was asleep in her chair. She used to wear a pearl necklace every Sunday. It was gone. Mr. Henderson, the Korean War vet, used to have a gold watch. Gone. They were robbing us blind, and nobody knew. I felt a surge of adrenaline I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't just fighting for Sarah's ring anymore. I was fighting for all of us. But how? I had no phone, no visitors, no money. My word was worthless against their medical records. Then I remembered the vent. In my room, near the floor, behind the heavy velvet curtains that smelled of dust, there was an air return vent. I had noticed it months ago because it rattled when the wind blew. I used to fix these things. I knew how they worked. That night, after Kyle did his rounds, shining his flashlight in my face to make sure I was asleep, I waited. I counted to 1,000. Then I slid out of bed.
My knees screamed in protest as I knelt on the cold floor. I used a dime I had found in the hallway 3 weeks ago, my only currency, to unscrew the grate. It took forever. My fingers were stiff, fumbling. Every scrape of metal sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. I worked through the pain, sweat beading on my forehead despite the chill. Finally, the screw gave way. I pulled the grate off. The duct was dark and dusty, but it was a hiding spot, a place they wouldn't look. But a hiding spot for what? I had no evidence. I had nothing but my word. I needed proof. The next morning, I initiated Phase 2. I needed to get into the office, Mrs. Vance's office. That's where she kept the incident reports, and, if I was right, the inventory of lost items before they were fenced. I waited for the fire drill. They tested the alarms every first Tuesday of the month at 10 a.m. It was chaos. The staff hated it. They herded us toward the exits like cattle. 10 a.m. came. The alarm blared, a harsh, rhythmic shriek. "All right, everyone up. Let's go," Kyle shouted, clapping his hands. I shuffled along with the others, moving toward the East Wing exit. But as we passed the administration hallway, I feigned a stumble. I grabbed my chest, gasping. My inhaler, I wheezed, dropping to one knee. "Oh, for God's sake," Kyle groaned. "Where is it?" Room. I pointed back toward my room. "Stay here," Kyle snapped at the group. "Don't move." He ran back down the hall toward the bedrooms. The moment he turned the corner, I moved. I didn't go to my room. I slipped into the open door of Mrs. Vance's office. She was outside at the assembly point. I had 30 seconds, maybe less. I scanned the desk. Computer, locked. File cabinet, locked. Then I saw it, the lost and found logbook, sitting right on top of her blotter. I flipped it open. January 12th, Resident Carter, gold band. Status, lost/misplaced. January 14th, Resident Higgins, pearl strand. Status, lost/misplaced. And next to each entry, in small red ink, a check mark and a price. $200, $450. It was a ledger of theft. I didn't have a camera. I didn't have a copier. I did the only thing I could. I tore the page out. I crumbled it into a tight ball and shoved it in my sock, pushing it deep down toward my ankle. "Mr. Carter!" I froze. I turned around. Mrs. Vance was standing in the doorway. The alarm had stopped. The silence was deafening.
"What are you doing in here?" Her voice wasn't loud. It was terrifyingly quiet. I was looking for the bathroom," I stammered, playing the confused old man card. "The noise, it scared me." She walked toward me, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She smelled of expensive perfume and rot. She looked at the desk. She looked at the logbook. She saw the torn edge. Her eyes snapped up to mine. There was no pity there, only calculation. "You're not confused, are you, Raymond?" she whispered. She lunged for me. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my thin skin. "What did you take? Give it to me!" "Help!" I shouted, but the door was shut. She patted down my pockets. She checked my hands. She didn't check my socks. Not yet. "Kyle!" she screamed. Kyle appeared instantly, breathless from running. I couldn't find his... "Hey, what's he doing?" "He was stealing," Mrs. Vance hissed. "Search him. Strip him if you have to. He took a page from the ledger." My heart hammered. If they found that page, it was over. They wouldn't just sedate me. They would kill me. An accident, a fall down the stairs. I knew it. "Get off me!" I yelled, swinging my free arm. I caught Mrs. Vance in the shoulder. She stumbled back. "Hold him down!" Kyle tackled me. We hit the floor. The pain in my hip was blinding, a white-hot spear. He pinned my arms. Mrs. Vance was tearing at my clothes. She ripped my shirt open. Buttons scattered across the floor. "Check his shoes! Check his socks!" she screamed. I kicked out. I caught Kyle in the shin. He grunted and loosened his grip for a fraction of a second.
I rolled toward the shredder under the desk. I reached into my sock. I pulled out the crumbled ball of paper. No! Mrs. Vance dived. But I was faster, or maybe just more desperate. I shoved the paper into the mouth of the shredder. The sensor tripped. Whirr! The teeth grabbed the paper. Mrs. Vance grabbed my wrist, yanking it back, but it was too late. The ledger page, the proof, was gone. Confetti. I lay there panting, staring up at them. I had destroyed the evidence, but I had also destroyed my only leverage. Mrs. Vance stood up, smoothing her skirt. Her face was red, her eyes wild. She looked at the shredder, then at me. A smile slowly spread across her face, a terrible, victorious smile. "Well, Raymond," she said softly, "now it's just your word against ours, and who's going to believe a violent, dementia-ridden old man who attacks the staff?" She nodded to Kyle. "Take him to the quiet room and leave him there. No dinner, no water. Let him think about what he's done." The quiet room was a tiled cell in the basement, no windows, one mattress on the floor, a heavy steel door with a small observation slit. It was cold, colder than my room upstairs. They left me there for what felt like an eternity. Darkness, silence, hunger. I lay on the mattress, curled into a ball to preserve heat. My hip throbbed with a dull, sickening rhythm. My throat was parched. This was it. This was how it ended. Not with dignity, not surrounded by family, but alone, in the dark, starving, while people like Vance and Kyle laughed upstairs with my wife's ring. I closed my eyes and tried to summon Sarah's face, but it was fading. The hunger was eating my memories. I started to cry, dry, hacking sobs that shook my fragile ribcage. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I failed. I'm sorry." I drifted into a fever dream. I saw the jungle again. Vietnam, 1968. The smell of wet earth and cordite. We were pinned down, mortars falling like rain. I was scared then, too, but I didn't give up. I was a sergeant. I had men to lead. I had to build a bridge to get them out. "Build a bridge, Ray," Sarah's voice, or maybe my own mind. "You don't need to fight them. You need to build a bridge out." I woke up with a start. The slit in the door slid open. A beam of light cut the darkness. It wasn't Kyle. It was the new girl, the young nurse's aide, Maya. She was maybe 20. She usually just changed sheets and looked terrified of Mrs. Vance. "Mr. Carter?" she whispered. "Water," I rasped. "Please." The door unlocked with a heavy clunk. Maya stepped quickly in, closing the door behind her, but not locking it. She had a bottle of water and a granola bar hidden in her pocket. She knelt beside me. "Here, drink slow." I gulped the water, spilling it down my chin. It was the best thing I had ever tasted. "Why?" I asked, looking at her. "Vance will fire you." Maya looked at the door, trembling. "I saw what they did to your picture. I saw Kyle break it. And I heard them talking about the ring. They sold it, Mr. Carter, yesterday, to a guy in a van behind the kitchen." My heart stopped. Sold. Gone. "But—" Maya reached into her scrub pocket again. "I found this in the trash when Kyle emptied the shredder bin." She held out her hand. In her palm was a handful of paper strips. Confetti. "It's destroyed," I said, hopelessness washing over me. "Not all of it," she whispered. "Look." She pieced 2 strips together on the mattress. The red ink was still visible. Jan 12th. Carter. Gold. $200. It wasn't enough for the police. Not really. But it was something. "Maya?" I gripped her hand. "I need a favor. A big one. Are you brave?" She looked at me, her eyes wide. Then she nodded. "My grandma was in a place like this. They mistreated her too. I want to help. I need my notebook, the black one in my nightstand, and I need a phone." Maya was my bridge. She snuck me back to my room under the guise of cleaning duty while Kyle was on his smoke break. She retrieved my black notebook. Mrs. Vance thought I was writing nonsense. Scribbles, she called it. She was wrong. I was an engineer. I liked data. For 3 years, I had tracked everything. Every time a resident complained of a missing item, every time Mrs. Vance bought a new car or purse, every time Kyle came in with new shoes. Dates, times, but most importantly, patterns. I opened the notebook. I turned to the back pages. "What is that?" Maya asked, keeping watch at the door. "The roster," I said. "I know when they shift the goods. Every third Friday. That's tomorrow." "What can we do? Call the cops?" "They won't come for a hearsay complaint from a dementia patient," I said grimly. "We need to catch them in the act. We need undeniable proof. Audio, video." Maya bit her lip. "I have my phone, but they take our phones away at the start of the shift. Mrs. Vance locks them in her office." I smiled, a grim, hard smile. "Perfect." "What?" "If your phone is in her office, then your phone is in the room where they make the deals." I explained the plan. It was risky. If Maya got caught, she'd lose her job. If I got caught, I'd probably die in that basement. "You have a voice recorder app on your phone?" I asked. "Yes." "Set it to record. Hide the phone in the bottom of the basket where you put the phones. Make sure the microphone is facing up. When Vance meets the fence tomorrow, we'll be listening." The next day was torture. Friday. The air in the nursing home was thick with tension. Mrs. Vance was buzzing around, nervous. Kyle was aggressive. At 6 p.m., the shift change happened. Maya walked into the office to turn in her phone. I watched from down the hall, holding my breath. She came out a minute later, looking pale. She nodded at me once. The trap was set. Now we just had to wait. I sat in the common room, my eyes fixed on the office door. Hours ticked by. 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Then the back door opened. A man in a heavy coat walked in. He didn't sign the guest book. He walked straight into Mrs. Vance's office. Kyle followed him in and locked the door. I looked at Maya across the room. She looked terrified. The meeting lasted 20 minutes. When the man left, he was carrying a small velvet bag. My ring was in that bag. I knew it. The weekend passed in agonizing slowness. We couldn't retrieve the phone until Maya's shift ended on Monday morning. If the battery died, if Vance found it. Monday morning, 7 a.m., Maya came out of the office with her phone. She hurried to my room, her hands shaking so hard she almost dropped it. "Did it work?" I asked. She pressed play. Static. Shuffling noises. Then Mrs. Vance's voice, crystal clear. "I've got 3 watches, 2 wedding bands, and a diamond brooch. Old man Carter's ring is in the mix. Heavy gold, should melt down nice." A man's voice. "400 for the lot." Kyle's. "400? The ring alone is worth that. Come on, Tony." Vance. "Just take it. We need the cash. The state inspectors are coming next week. I need to bribe the auditor." I closed my eyes. It was everything. Theft, fence, bribery, conspiracy. "We got them," Maya whispered. "We actually got them." "Not yet," I said, opening my eyes. "Recording is one thing, but I want my ring back and I want them to rot." "How?" "We call the police now. We play this for them." I dialed 911. She handed me the phone. 911, what is your emergency?" "My name is Raymond Carter. I am a decorated veteran and a prisoner in the Oak Creek nursing home. I have evidence of grand larceny and elder abuse. Send a car. Send 2. I hung up. I felt a strange sense of calm. I put on my best shirt, the flannel one with the holes in the elbows. I combed my hair. I wheeled myself out into the hallway, directly in front of the nursing station. Mrs. Vance was there drinking coffee. She looked at me with disdain. "Back to your room, Raymond. Breakfast isn't for an hour." "I'm not hungry," I said loudly. Everyone stopped. The nurses, the residents. "I'm waiting for company." "You don't have company," she sneered. "Your family left you here to die." "My brothers are coming," I said. "Brothers?" she laughed. "You have no brothers." Sirens. faint at first, then growing louder, screaming, wailing sirens. Not 1, 3, 4. The color drained from Mrs. Vance's face. She stood up. "What did you do?"
Blue lights flashed against the windows, painting the hallway in strobes of azure. The heavy thud of boots on the pavement outside. The front doors burst open. 4 officers, 2 state troopers. "Who is in charge here?" the lead officer bellowed. Mrs. Vance stepped out from the desk, trembling. I am. What is the meaning of this?" "Mrs. Patricia Vance." The officer checked a clipboard. "We received a call regarding theft and abuse." "That's ridiculous!" Vance pointed a shaking finger at me. "It's him! He's senile! He makes up stories! He attacks my staff!" Kyle stepped forward, trying to look intimidating but failing. "Yeah, he's crazy! You can't listen to him!" The officer looked at me. He saw an old man in a wheelchair, wearing a flannel shirt and a diaper. He looked back at Vance. I could see the doubt in his eyes. He was losing interest. He thought it was a waste of time. "Sir," the officer said to me, "did you make the call?" "I did, and I have the proof." I nodded to Maya. She stepped forward, holding the phone up high. She pressed play. Volume max. Mrs. Vance's voice echoed through the silent hallway. "Old man Carter's ring. Should melt down nice. I need to bribe the auditor." The silence that followed was absolute. Mrs. Vance looked like she had been shot. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. Kyle started backing away toward the exit. "Grab him!" the officer shouted. 2 troopers tackled Kyle before he got 3 steps. He screamed like a child. The lead officer walked up to Mrs. Vance. He took out his handcuffs. "Mrs. Vance, you have the right to remain silent." I watched as they cuffed her. She looked at me. Her eyes were filled with hate. "You old fool! You think this changes anything? You're still alone. You're still nothing." "I'm a United States veteran, and I'm a husband, and you will never touch anyone in this building again." They dragged her out. The residents, Mr. Henderson, Mrs. Higgins, they started clapping. A slow, weak applause that grew louder. The officer knelt beside my wheelchair. "Mr. Carter, we'll need that recording, and we found a bag in her safe. It hasn't been moved yet." He pulled a small plastic evidence bag from his pocket. Inside was a gold band. My breath hitched. The officer cut the seal and tipped the ring into my palm. It was cold, heavy. I rubbed my thumb over the gold. I felt the scratch on the inside where I had dropped it on the garage floor in 1985. It was real. I slid it onto my pinky finger. It fit perfectly. I started to cry. Not the dry, painful sobs of the basement, but tears of relief, tears of victory. I kissed the ring. "I got you back, Sarah. I got you back." The fallout was massive. The investigation revealed a ring of theft spanning 5 years. Vance and Kyle went to prison. The state took over the facility. New staff came in. They turned the heat up. The food got better. But the best part wasn't the heat or the food. A week later, a young man walked into my room. He was wearing a suit. He looked familiar. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes." "I'm Detective Miller. I just wanted to shake your hand." He paused. "My grandfather was in a home like this. He died because of neglect. Nobody listened to him. I wish he had someone like you." He shook my hand, a firm, respectful grip. "You're a hero, Raymond." I looked down at the ring on my finger. The sun was shining through the window, catching the gold, making it glow. I wasn't a hero. I was just a husband who kept a promise.
I looked at the empty spot on the wall where Sarah's picture used to be. Maya had framed a new poppy for me. Sarah was smiling. We did it, honey. We built the bridge. I am old. My body is failing. But tonight, as I close my eyes, I am not cold. I am not lonely. I am Raymond Carter, and I am still here.